All right. Can you all hear me okay on your side? Seeing the volume, that sounded a bit low. Could you all hear me okay on your side? Is it loud enough?
Yes, it fine.
Yeah. I know when they say recording in progress, it does normally sound louder than that. Anyway, all right. So just quickly, right? So one sentence to me, right? I am Mr. Samuel Shadrach, the head of the course provider for the Shadrach Safety Institute. This course is globally accredited by NEBOSH in the UK. You all know the certificates do not come from Trinidad. Those of us in Guyana, the cert doesn't come from here. This is coming from NEBOSH directly in the UK, right? This course, as I mentioned, is a level 4 qualification. It builds on the knowledge of level 3. However, the exam is very easy, right? So let's get into that. The first thing I want to put here is that it's a multiple choice exam. You could write it better than this, of course. Multiple choice exam. The exam is normally on a Wednesday. I think you all know that those of us who did level 3, it's on a Wednesday, right? And I would let you know when we are finished, right? This sort of exam, you have to book it once you're finished, but we could do it predictively now, right? So if this is May, um, two sessions in May, June, July, August, we should be finishing around, it's about 7 or 8 sessions, right? So spread that over June, July, we should be finishing just the start of August there. And the exam is actually the third Wednesday of every month, right? So please say that down. The exam is the third Wednesday of every month. Those of us who did the NEBOSH level 3, you all know your exam is the first Wednesday of every month. PSM exams is the third Wednesday of every month. Now, if we finish before, we book it in July, right? If we finish before, we book it for the third Wednesday in July. If we take a little bit longer, we book it for the third Wednesday in August, right? It was actually my dream, exactly my dream that um, we could have done some of this face to face, but then we have Oliver and we have Quinton in Guyana, right? So it was my dream because this whole process was before, but when I brought this to Trinidad, um, well, the pandemic didn't happen, right? So 2017, 18, 19, the start of 2020. Actually, no, the start of 2020 was the pandemic, right? We actually did have a class and they had to go online from December 2019 into January 2020. They actually had to go online. But I was hoping that we could have done it face to face. But that is a thing of the past, right? And you see, face to face, we could have finished faster. Because what we used to do, we used to go till about 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock on a Sunday, right? From 9 o'clock in the morning. But it is what it is. We'll make it work, right? So that's why I need to start and I need to stop, just finish up with the introduction, right? So the other thing here is that the pass mark on this is actually 60%. It's not 100%. You know that NEBOSH certificate is 100%. That project is 100%. The pass mark is 60%. And you get, if you could write it better for me as well, because the marker is a bit troublesome, right? And you get 40 questions on a platform. Some of you are familiar with the platform already. And it is the same platform. Those of us who did laboratory, it's the same link. It's the same platform, right? You have 40 questions and you have to get 24 correct. Well, 24 would be 60%, right? And you can get more than 24 correct, of course. Many of the students, their pass mark end up being in 70s, 80s, 90s. Some of you here, like I said, I have some diligent persons who are here. I'm not going to call anybody name, but everybody's diligent. But when I said, I know some of you did very good in the level 3, right? Some very high marks in the level 3. So it is that I'm talking about. I'm not saying anything else, but some of you did 70s and stuff in your level 3 now. So I know that once you get more than 60% you pass. So many students, the average mark is 70, 75, 80. I've had a couple of 90s, and that means you're getting more than 24 correct, right? So once you get more than 24 correct, you pass. And that is how simple that is. We refer to this course, even though it's level 4, as the company has a phrase, which is a low-hanging fruit. I do look forward to this on a Sunday as well. It's not stressful. And you would see, folks, the exam is not stressful either. There is no big set of writing. There is not a difficult pass mark, right? It's not 100 that you have to get, like the NEBOSH Level 3 project. You have to get everything correct to pass. This is not that. If you get 25 correct, you pass, you get 24 correct, you pass. Many of you would get way more than this, especially when they repeat. Remember what I said, they repeat questions, right? So you're going to see some questions on the slide today. And I guess when we finish some content, you are going to see some past papers. You can do those questions, send it in to me. We'll do some in class, of course. About 20 of those questions would repeat. So it's not a tough exam. However, there's one catch, right? I don't have to take off what I have there. I'll just spend a minute or two on it because I want to start teaching. Could I take it off? Anybody have any questions? So multiple choice, Wednesdays is the exam, the third Wednesday of every month, pass mark 60%, 40 questions. You have to get 24, well, 60% would mean 24, correct, out of the 40. They repeat a lot of questions. The questions are not hard, don't fool yourself. Most of the questions are not hard. There are one or two tricky ones, but most of the questions are straightforward once you know your work anyway. And you all know me. You all know me, those of us who know me, those who don't know me, like Quentin and Natalie, I have a knack for slowing down and telling you what a question is. And that's why I mentioned if you could have a notebook or a sheet of paper today, if even have a sheet of paper, right? If you could, like when we pause for the past papers, please take that down because those are the questions that tend to repeat. Anybody understand? Could I take this off? Yes, no, yes, no.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. It's going, right? All right. So the little catch is this, right? The exam, when you log in the platform, you only have an hour and a half. It's not a 24-hour exam. And it's not an open book exam either, right? For those of us who did the laboratory, this is not an open book exam. You're going to have to learn some stuff. And I'll tell you what to learn. I'll tell you what you need to learn by heart. And I'll also tell you what you don't need to learn by heart, right? So that is one of the catch. But you have a 24-hour window. I don't know if you want to write that down. On the day of the exam, you have whole day to log in. But once you log in and you start, right? I'll walk you through that process another Sunday. Once you log in and you start, you would see like a timer will come up. We have an hour and a half. Most people finish it before the hour and a half anyway, especially when you get about half repeat, right? But it's not a 24-hour exam. You have a 24-hour window, right? So on the day of the exam, you could log in, 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 p.m. in the evening, 7 p.m. in the evening, 10 a.m. in the morning. You have a 24-hour window. But once you log in, right, you have to do some logistics, right? I'll walk you through that in a bit. Well, not today, probably closer to exam. I'll mention it. Once you do the logistics part of it, it's very simple, by the way. And they will give you the option, it'll come up in your screen. Do you want to start? You click yes, the timer will start, right? The questions come up one by one. Most students have no issues with it, right? Why I say most students have no issues, if you have internet issues, well, that's going to affect the system a bit, right? So we hope for the best where internet access is concerned in the island, Trinidad, Tobago maybe, as well as in Guyana, right? So that is something beyond our control. I can really keep my fingers crossed that you may have some sort of data plan or something or some kind of backup internet for the day of the exam, right? The other thing is this, the exam is supervised online. Yes, right? So you are being supervised. You'll have to have a PC on that day. I know some of you told me you don't have all of these things sorted out as yet, but predictably, we did tell you you'll have to have a PC with a webcam. And when you log on, the webcam is going to be on. So the NEBOSH is going to be supervising you. You cannot have, just to make this clear, the simplest way to tell you, right? Instead of saying what you should not do, I'll tell you what you should do. Because what you should not do is 100 different things, right? But what you should do is sit by your computer without any textbook, without any notes, without any phone in your hand, right? There should be no open icons. There'll be no open icons, just the blank screen that you click to get the platform on. If you do that, you'll have a flawless exam, right? As we go through the Sundays, I'll tell you all the things people just do, except in that, right? But the day for the exam, just picture yourself in a real exam room, right? Don't come with any paper, don't come with any book. Take off your phone, leave it outside the room because in an exam room, the exam room is your personal space, but NEBOSH is looking at you, right? If they see anything, if they pick up your phone, there's a software that is going to be downloaded into your computer when you get on the platform. That software picks up things like your cell phone, right? So if you have a cell phone in your hand, it'll pick that up and it'll freeze the system. So to make life simple, when you go to do the exam, imagine it, because it's not imagine, it's just real, but I'm just saying imagine it as if you're going into a real exam room. It could be your bedroom, but it is a real exam room because NEBOSH is looking at you, right? And the session is being recorded for NEBOSH across there. If somebody comes into your room, they're going to freeze the exam on you. When they freeze it, you're going to have to log in again and you don't get back the extra time, right? So for simplicity's sake, instead of saying all what cannot be done, just remember when you sit into that room, that hour and a half, right? That is a real exam. NEBOSH is looking at you. Just take it like that. Don't ask me what could be done or what can't be done. Sit by the machine, no phone in hand, no book in hand, no paper in hand. Log in the platform, download the paper, right? On screen, the questions come up one by one, unlike the NEBOSH level 3. So the questions come up one by one. And you finish number 1, you click next, again number 2. You finish number 2, it's like a plea exam. Those of us who do the plea exam anyway, the multiple choice exam one by one. If you do it like that, the hour will finish, the hour and a half, you probably be finished on an hour time. You'll have a flawless exam. When you finish, submit. Well, when you finish all 40, you just have to submit anyway. Then put on back your phone, then you can leave your room. Simple as that. Do we have any questions on that, people? If you do that, we have no issues at all. Right? So I think that's easier than saying what you cannot do, because there's 100 different things that you cannot do. But if you do what you should do, you'll have a flawless exam, as most students have a flawless exams, right? So could I start? Anybody have any questions? We can hit to somebody questions, or maybe, all that cannot be done, or could I do this? Could I do this? No, just do what I tell you to do, right? And you'll have a flawless exam. But as the Sundays go along, creative ideas will sneak into your minds, and you'll have to ask me what could be done and what cannot be done, right? But if you do it the way it's supposed to be done, then we have no questions. Then all the answers are the same. Well, for whatever question you ask me, the answer is the same. Sit by your computer, no paper, no no phone in your hand, no textbook around you. All the answers are going to come back to that. All right. I know you all have questions in it, but you don't want to ask. Anybody could just share one question that you have, one thought that you have?
I have one question, sir.
Yes, Mary.
So you mentioned that it is similar to the pre exam. So while you answering, are you seeing how much you get corrected one time?
No, no, it's not like that. I mean, plea, a long story short, plea is UK, for those who know, there's a plea was brought to Trinidad by the guy who taught me in the UK, who trained me in the UK. I don't know if you all know that. Stowe and plea was brought here. Dr. Dax still in the energy chamber. Dr. Dax is a British national. I actually brought Dr. Dax. I transported him from the airport to Trinidad. But the long and short of it is no. You don't get to see the percentage one time. You're gonna have to wait 2 weeks though, right? Like this, the folks who wrote the exam I told you the 22nd of April, they got results already. Right? If you know, it's not even the 22nd of May, right? So I told you we had a 3-month batch, and then they wrote the exam the 22nd of April. They got results already. Right? So I think it's about 2 weeks, that's about 2 to 3 weeks, and you get the results. Yeah. Okay, let's make a start, right? So if you have your books, let's not ignore that, right? This book I think is about $400 to $500 TT dollars. This book that comes with the price. Of course, we offer an all-inclusive price. The price right now includes the textbook and the exam fee. There's no hidden price in the course thus far anyway, and we never had anyway, right? So the first element is, of course, well, those of us who don't know, remember we, of course, are accredited by NEBOSH. Those of us in Trinidad, we also have ACTT registration. And of course, if you're in Guyana, what is that? That is like our accreditation council here locally in the islands of Trinidad and Tobago anyway, right? All right, so let's go straight into it. So if you don't have the book, then look at the slide. It's the same thing, right? The learning outcomes, we're going to look at the meaning of process safety and how it differs from personal safety. We are also going to explain the role of leadership in process safety management. We're going to explain the purpose of organizational learning and the sharing of lessons learned. We're going to try to explain how change could be managed to effectively reduce risk to people and plan. We're also going to try to outline the benefits and limitation and types of worker participation and engagement, outline what is meant by competence and its importance to process safety. Now, I could finish all of that. What slows me down, though, is the past papers, like stopping to tell you this is a past paper. So I'll try to do it, but I'll try to do it fast as well, right? So have your pens, have your paper and stuff out, right? Now, we did create a WhatsApp group. So what I can do, we can put this video on YouTube and we can then forward it to the WhatsApp group so that you have it at the end of the course anyway, right? All right, so page 4, if you have your textbook, the distinction between process safety and personal safety. Now, for those who know me, if you all want, we could explain as opposed to read, but we'll read a little bit first, right? But for those who know, right, reading is not explanation, but I'll read first and then I'll explain. The thing is, once we explain, you'll understand. So there's no need to read anymore. So let's read a bit first, right? Process safety has been defined by the Energy Institute definition adapted from the Center for Chemical Process Safety of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers as the following. Now, the same definition is in the book, right? But let me just focus here because if I go to find it back and forth, it's on page 4, the right-hand side, the definition of process safety. Same thing in the book, but those are the things that slow me down, you see, trying to find this, find that for you all. But I do it, but today's the first day, so I want to focus and teach it, right? So what it is, if you look at the book, or here it says, it's a blend of engineering and management skills focused on preventing catastrophic accidents and near misses, particularly structural collapse, explosions, fires, toxic release. I'm trying to admit somebody and talk to you. Toxic release. What's it? Toxic release associated with loss of containment of energy or dangerous substances such as chemical and petroleum products. Let's go again a little bit. Personal safety can be defined as the protection of people and oneself from physical injury. It is, in principle, the absence of unacceptable risk. I'm admitting people still, right? As such, if one accepts risk, then to them, it is perceived to be safe. Example, the choice you make to cross a busy road with oncoming traffic. Usually, personal safety deals with hazards that are everyday or common occurrences and can be said to be those hazards that are high frequency, but they have a low severity risk, generally speaking. Think about things like housekeeping. Think about things like you're getting your workers to wear PPE. It's things that you fight with every day. But even if it's housekeeping and somebody did slip and fall, sometimes there may be a bruise. Sometimes there may be a sprain. Most of the times there are no broken bones. If we go back to the definition, you would see they say process safety is a blend of engineering and management skills focused on preventing what type of accidents? What type of accidents? Everyday accidents? No, it said what type of accidents? Just unmute your mic a bit.
Catastrophic.
Right. So what I was saying, yeah, process safety deals with more severe stuff there. I'll explain it in a bit, but I'm going to tell you when I explain, there's no need to read anymore. So I'll still read it, right? Process safety deals with low frequency. Frequency means how often, by the way. So frequency means how often something happens. So process safety deals with things that are low frequency. But when they happen, there is a high severity risk. Common examples can include Piper Alpha on the 6th of July, 1988, in which a series of explosions ripped through a platform, killing 167 persons. Not 7. 7 people dead is plenty. Not 16. 16 people that died is plenty. 167 people. That's a lot. That is a catastrophe, right? We have the Nipro UK chemical plant, an explosion at Flixborough that left 28 dead, 38 injured, and damages up to 2 miles away, right? The explosion was equivalent to 45 tons of TNT. So what is process safety? The protection of people and property from episodic and catastrophic incidents that may result from unplanned or unexpected deviation in process conditions. And that's also another definition there, right? So I think I can explain now, right? Let me explain now. So there is a distinction between level 3 and level 4, right? Level 3 safety, personal safety was to protect you. That's what it's called, personal safety. It's like protecting you by wearing PPE, doing your JSA, doing your risk assessments, doing your inspection. It's like protecting you, right? If you look at the left-hand side, you'll see that here, right? So you look at everyday hazards, slip, trips, and fall, you do an incident report, you look at unsafe acts, unsafe conditions, you look at JSAs, right? Safety meetings. But process safety is that same thing. Remember, level 4 builds on level 3. So process safety is that you're doing that, you're protecting yourself, but you're also protecting the plant, right? You're protecting yourself, but you're also protecting the plant. You see something goes wrong at Paria, something goes wrong at, Proman. Yes, it's about personal safety wearing PP, but the destruction to the plant is going to be massive. And for that reason, if you look at it here, process safety deals with the things that are more serious, right? Hazardous properties and subject to major accidents. Because of that, the level of documentation, I think I was hinting this to you all in level 3. When we're doing level 3, I was telling you all that it have more to safety then, right? So like in everyday safety, if something happens, you may have to do a risk assessment. In process safety, we do a risk assessment too, but it's a deeper risk assessment, right? And in chapter 2 of this book, in chapter 2 of this syllabus, we're going to be looking at some of those deeper assessments. In short, process safety is protecting you, but is also protecting the plant that you're in. You see, if you don't protect the plant that you're in and there's a catastrophe, then you and the plant might not be around anymore, right? So very good example of a question is what you just saw, but I came back with this slide. An example of a question is this, right? They say, everyday safety, right? Or personal safety is things that you're faced with every day. Every day you're fighting housekeeping. Every day somebody's speeding in your compound. Every day somebody not wearing PPE. Those are things that you fight with every day. But in the long run, it may just be one person. It may just be that one person that doesn't have on the air plug or the air defender that could be affected, right? So in terms of severity, yes, that one person is bad for them. But in the grand scale of a destruction, of a catastrophe, then the severity is low, right? When compared to one person being killed, 167 people being killed, one person is seen to be low severity risk, right? And of course, maybe death is not the best factor here, right? Maybe I should not have said that because that is serious in any way, but it could be more in respect to things like bruise and first aid and sprain and strain. And even if maybe there is a broken bone, it is not probably a death in everyday safety, right? So process safety, though, when these things happen, when there's a massive destruction, when there's an explosion of your plant, product, tank, vessel, then it is classed as a catastrophe, multiple deaths, and the total destruction of your plant. And here, after we said that, this is a past paper question. So this is one of the questions that came from before. And remember the value of past papers? They repeat, yes. Today is the first day, but it's not a long course. It's about 7 sessions, right? So from the very first day, you start getting the past papers. So process, and this is how it comes. I told you all, it's not difficult, right? A lot of people say well, you all said, in fact, not a lot of people say, right? You all said, some people said, well, multiple choice is tricky. It's tricky if you don't learn your work, right? If you learn your work, and especially when I tell you this is a question, would you get this? Yes. It probably wouldn't be the same question, but would you get a question saying, what is process safety? The answer is yes, because there are different forms of the question. Look at here again. Look at there again. There are different forms of the question. So will you get what is process safety? Yes. Could it be any one of these questions? It could be, right? Remember, we are not NEBOSH, which is why you came here. If you didn't want to do NEBOSH and you wanted to do COSTAT, those of us in Guyana would understand. I guess if you wanted to do a Guyana base course, but then you go to the University of Guyana, or you go to School of Nations, or you go to the new guy in a school, right? So likewise, you all didn't do that. You wanted something globally recognized. You didn't want from Guyana, and those of us in Trinidad, we're not doing UTT process safety here. We're not doing, City and Guilds process safety here. We're not doing Kenson's process safety here. This is what it is, the NEBOSH process safety course. So could we guarantee the question? No. But could we guarantee the topic? Yes. They would ask you what is process safety, right? So what is process safety? Does it deal with high frequency events? No. Low frequency events? Not every day we get like an explosion on an offshore rig. Not every day we get that. But when we get it in the world, it is a catastrophe. You understand that, folks? Yeah? Those of us in Trinidad, not every day we get a paria, thank God. Not every day we have a paria incident. Not every day we have a night one incident, those of us in Trinidad, right? Those of us in Guyana, not every day you all get a death in the island that's by the barrier that's being made there. Not every day that happens. But when it happens, you can say that is bad. That is a catastrophe, right? So process safety deals with things that are low frequency but high severity risk, right? Low frequency, low severity, no. High frequency, no. These things don't happen every day, so it's never high frequency, and of course, it's never a low severity. So the best answer here is B. Now, I did this one to show you how easy it is. Now, you have to do this one. Tell me what you think is the best answer for this, right? I'll read it for you. Or you want to look at it without me read it? If you could put the answer in the chat, you could actually unmute because I don't want to waste too much time. This is an easy question. Which of the following best describes the main focus of process safety? Preventing major incidents with process machinery in large manufacturing industries. Preventing major incidents in food processing industries. Preventing major incidents with flammable substance in chemical industries. Preventing major incident within high hazard industry. What do you think is the best answer? The great thing about multiple choice, folks, the answer there. Of course, you have to find it. But the great thing is that, yeah. So which one? D? Anybody else for D? If I get D, okay, good. Okay, yes, the answer is D, right? If you have, if you printed this, if not, just make sure you know the answer is D. Remember the questions, just repeat. If Mama told you which one, I don't know, but I know you're going to get what is process safety. Right? Look at another one. Just take a look at another one. So it's not, I told you before, this is a nice Sunday course. You get a level 4 cert on a Sunday, right? Process safety differs from personal safety because it protects the public only and all industries, the public only and process industries, workers only and all industries, workers, public, and process industries. The best answer is always there. Which one do you think is the best one? It seems to be D again, right? So the letter D has it again. Okay, very good. So Quincy, yes, it's correct. I wouldn't get to shout everybody, right? Quincy, it's correct. Roger, it's correct. Quinton, it's okay. Quinton in Guyana, of course. I don't know if you know Oliver, but both of you all are in Guyana. Rennie, Kern, F. Where you get F from? Kern, I think that's the D or the D and the F. I probably type it wrong. All right, I will take that to be a D there, Kern, right? Pooja, it's correct. Kern again, it's correct. Quincy, okay, it's correct. Mary, it's correct, right? All right, folks. So that's how simple that is. Let's move on. Yeah, so just like that, that finished. What's your book? You'll see. What's your book? In the learning outcomes, right? That's what I tell you. I can explain everything to you all instead of reading, but we'll read a little bit. The learning outcomes, watch it, right? On the syllabus, watch it. Was 1.1, outline the meaning of process safety and how it differs from personal safety. We just finished that. Watch your book, you'll see. Those of us who have the book, it was only 1 page. If you don't have your book, I'm telling you, it's only 1 page. That 1.1 was only 1 page. So we are on 1.2 already. Explain the role of leadership in process safety management, which is the second page we on in the textbook right now. Page 5. Just now I tell you page 4, but now it's page 5. If you don't have the book, look up on this slide. It's the same thing. Right? Okay, here what I'll do again. I'll read it a couple of slides and then I'm going to stop. Because again, the reading is not the explanation. But once I explain it, you'll understand it. And we can go straight to our question. right? Everybody okay so far? David, nice to see you. Having survived a catastrophe himself, right? Anissa, Daniil, Kun, Quinton, the camera. Quinton, you'll let us see your face a bit before we finish, right? Yeah, okay. I just tried to shout out some of you all, right? Alim, Alim, you look different. Oh, yeah, I'm nosy. Okay, right. Okay, Kamini, right? Yes, Devin survived. I'll let him share his story one of these days. Devin survived a fireball. That could be described as a catastrophe in itself, right? But it's nice to have you here with us today, David, right? All right, 1.2, process safety leadership. I'm going to read a bit, right? I'm reading about 3 slides and then I'll explain, right? Process safety must start at the top with leadership teams being fully aware of the hazard of their processes, the risk potential of their processes, the possible impact of the hazard being realized on the safety, reputation, and business aspect should it occur. Leadership team must therefore develop and foster a culture that would see process safety as of the highest priority. Make sure you know what this slide is talking about, leadership. Senior management and directors must also be visible in promoting and developing a positive safety culture. Our reading still, I'll explain just now, right? Senior management and directors must also be visible in promoting and developing a positive safety culture. Senior management should define and assign responsibilities for process safety management critical positions. Such persons with PSM critical responsibilities should be held accountable regardless of their position within the organization. Senior management should provide adequate resources for process safety management and should be made aware of the consequences of not providing them. These can include the moral, legal, and financial reasons why managers should, take care of process safety. Adequate resources can include human resources, making sure workers are trained, having skilled technicians. The amount of training should be proportional to the risk involved. The senior manager should make sure that there are adequate financial resources, time and money, and the senior managers should ensure that there is a proper physical facility, the design, maintenance, and modification of plant and equipment. So process safety leadership, the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, Section 2.3 requires that employers prepare and review a written health and safety policy once there are 5 or more persons employed. This must also be brought and any revision of it to the attention of employees. The health and safety policy usually sets out the goals, aims, objectives, and targets for the organization. Senior managers and leadership teams in process safety must also set process safety objectives and targets that must be routinely reviewed and must be publicly available. Process safety management follows from the Occupational Health and Safety Management System in the UK known as the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. This model of management is based on the idea of continual improvement, and the same must be applied to process safety management. You think you're ready for the explanation now? Because we read, right? We read the points there. So just for my new students, when I said new, if you came in, we said today we have some students who are new to us. We have Quinton, we have Natalie, we have Quincy, right? So in case you don't know what this is here, this is, well, the first thing is that this is not a question, right? But the Health and Safety at Work, etc. Act, anybody here remember what that is in this course? Those who did level 3 before, what is that? It's not an exam question. I'm just trying to clear up a point here. Anybody remember what is the HSW Act? You all must have, because half of you all passed the level 3 already. More than half of you. What is the HSW Act?
The right to safe work.
Right, the right to safe work. But what is it? What is it? What is it? It's the law for what? It's a law, right? Because it have acted into it. But what is it law
It's
for?
allowed to protect the employees and the employers.
Okay. I'm looking for a simple answer. Daniel, going too much into it. If somebody, okay, like we have students here who probably never heard about that before. If you had to tell them, somebody say, well, what's the HSW Act? What's the Health and Safety at Work Act? What's the simplest answer you'll tell them?
Laws to follow.
Right. Well, it's the main law for health and safety in the UK, right? So for those
It's the
three
right to
students,
safe system of work.
right, but they need to go into it. You're actually saying what the act have in it, right? So all of that is correct. But
Well, I
the
remember it's
HS,
on level 3, so that's
yeah,
what I remember.
but you're going too much into it. NEBOSH is not going to ask anything on the act itself, right? So for those of us who are new, the HSW Act is the main law for health and safety in the UK. So if you're new, like Quincy and Quinton and Natalie, you could just have an idea of that. So when they say the HSW Act Section 2 requires the company to have a HSE policy, it's just saying that this is the main law for health and safety in the world. And of course, in the UK, because remember, we are still part of the British Commonwealth anyway. Our ASHAC, the one in Guyana and the one in Trinidad, came out of this act here, right? So what we are trying to say is that the law is saying that the senior managers should lead the company, and one of the ways of leading is to have a HSE policy. Why would you want to have a HSE policy? Look at here. The HSE policy will have the aim of the company, will have the goal of the company, right? So it will say something like, we at Gisby, those of us in Guyana, right? We at Gisby are committed to zero accidents and incidents. That's like a policy statement. And have the goal of the company. Those of us in Trinidad, right? We in Atlantic LNG, we will do the work safe or not at all. That's a policy statement, and that is a representation. That is something that is required by the law, right? So if you're unsure about that, you can just kind of refresh your memory with that. Look at the heading, I should merge it into one. The heading is process safety leadership. But what should the leaders do? The slide is telling you. Senior managers and leadership teams in process safety must also set process safety objectives and targets, right? So our company, Gisby Atlantic LNG, they would say, our target is zero accidents, zero, our days away from work. So that thing that you're setting, that goal, that target, that is a requirement of the law, right? The law in Guyana, the ASHAC 1997, TT ASHAC 2004, amended 2006. But it all started off in the HSW Act in the UK, right? So when they say process safety leadership, you must be leading by setting that policy. You all know what I'm talking about, right? Those of us who are new and those of us who may not have done courses for a long time. Sorry, that line wasn't supposed to be there. The policy is like a one-page document. You all must have seen it, right? When you go to some companies, it is actually to the back of the receptionist. It's like a one-page document. If you have gone to the electricity company in Trinidad, TNTech, if you have gone to the electricity company in Guyana, Guyana Power and Light, if you have gone to, Digicel, if you have gone to B Mobile, I don't think B Mobile is in Guyana, right? But you have gone to like your provider, FLIA, right? You would see like they have like a one-page thing on the wall, and they'll say like, we at Guyana Power and Light, we are TNTech, we are committed to a safe place of work. So this is what Dini was saying, a safe place, but she was getting into it, and as I was telling her, she was getting into what I was trying to say. But the simplest thing I was saying is, what is the HSW Act? The HSW Act is the law that requires the managers to lead. And how do you lead? Well, you lead by setting the goal of the company. Thinking it a bit, there's an old saying that goes, without a vision, the people will perish, right? So if the leader is to lead, then he'll lead by setting that goal. And this is what they're saying here, right? Anyway, folks, this is not really an exam question. Tell me if you get it a bit. I wanted to connect the dots so that when we say process safety leadership, it's not ambiguous then. It's not imaginary. The heading is process safety leadership, but it's for the leaders to lead. And how do they lead? Look at right here. The health and safety policy usually starts on the goal, the aim, the objective of the organization. Say if you are the directors of Gisby, right? Then you set the goal. What's the target? What do you want for the year? What do you want for safety? Zero accidents, safe place of work, safe access egress, welfare facilities, PPE for your workers, training. And that policy, that document is how the leaders could lead. Could I ask a question here? But it's for those of us who work in may know the answer. And if you want to get guessed to, right? On this form, the form that says zero accidents, this one pager, right? This form here that says zero accidents, safe access egress, welfare facilities, we're going to provide PPE, a safe place of work for you. What is normally to the bottom of that form?
When it was revised,
Right, okay, so when it was revised, so that's the date, and there's actually something else at the bottom of it too. Anybody can guess what's at the end of that form? So the date it was revised, and what again is at the bottom of that form?
So
I think
the
to
stove,
the
time, the
Okay, just now,
stove,
okay.
the stove stamp.
Well, the store stamp, but that's for Trinidad, so the folks in Guyana mightn't
Oh,
understand that, right? Yeah,
oh,
okay, but there's actually something simpler. You're all giving some tough answers today, but it's two one thing is really detailed answers. What is the simplest thing you find at the
HSE
bottom of that form?
manager's
To me, that form,
signature.
more like a
say?
a
Very
signature.
good, the manager's signature. So watch it. Process safety leadership. How could the leaders lead? The leaders lead by signing here, right? So when you sign here, when the signature of the CEO goes there, right? And somebody looks at that, they say, well, yes, TNTech is committed to safe place of work. TNTech is committed to safe plans and safe, safe access egress. How do they know that? Because look at here, and the CEO's signature is on it. So leadership must lead. And as we're trying to tell you, the heading is not just imaginary, it's what the leaders must do, right? Now, folks, all of this is not a passive question. I was just trying to explain. For the folks who are new, so do you all understand it that leadership teams must lead? A way of physically doing that is that you set the direction of the company by saying what is the goal of the company. The goal is what everybody will follow. If you say, we at Atlantic LNG will do the work safely or not at all, that's the goal for Atlantic LNG, right? Tell me if you understand that. And there are no questions on what is the act, right? So if you didn't do level 3, there's no question on this. We just put it into context that the law is saying leadership teams must lead. And a good way of doing that is to set the vision of your company. What else do leaders do? Set the vision of your company. Where do you want to see your company going? And in health and safety, we call that the HSE policy statement. I don't know if you want to write that down. This page have a name. And the name of it is going to change in this course. I'll tell you why in a bit. But for now, this is the HSE policy document. The name is going to change. Now, why the name will change? Because remember, it's process safety we're doing and not level 3 safety. So in process safety is always deeper than level 3. In chapter 2, the name of this document will change. Right? It will change in chapter 2 because chapter 2 is the one that talks about this. Anyway, let's get back to the question, or should I say to the passive question, right? So the big picture is that leadership must lead. It's not just a tagline. It's not just to say leadership must do this and do that. They must really do it. They must really put out this policy. They must really sign it. They must really date it, right? So leadership must lead. Look at right here. Senior managers, a leadership team, and process safety must, right? I'm taking it off, right? And I'm going to the next slide. So the next slide have exam questions in it. But, I wanted to explain before we get to that. Let me check with the chats. We seem to be losing some people. I know we were 21 just now. Maybe some folks have internet issues. Right. So Quentin, we addressed the recording in a bit. I'll address it at the end as well, right? Okay, so I think I saw somebody got logged out. Yeah, internet is an issue. That's what I'm saying. You see the exam, August month, kind of rainy month. You have to probably have a data plan on your phone or something to kind of pull the internet from it. Should that happen here? Trinidad has been having a lot of internet issues of late, right? And of course, Guyana, Oliver and Quinton Gala, but Guyana also have more power outages, right? Than anything else anyway. Power outage is very popular. Like when I was there, right? It was very common there anyway, right? All right, let's get to the next slide, right? So I was saying, let me just review this now. Process safety management follows from the Occupational Health and Safety Management System in the UK, known as the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, PDCA. I'll show you the link just now, right? I'll show you the link between this and this. There's a link. Yes, there's a link between this and this, right? What was the focus of this slide? The managers had to prepare what? What did the managers have to do to show their leadership here? They have to prepare what? I just took it off. This one page, I think is called a what? HSC what?
Policy.
Policy, right? Okay, let's get to the next slide here. Very good. So there's a link between that and this. You see the link just now. This model, what model? The PDCA cycle of management is based on the idea of continual improvement, and the same must be applied to process safety. So watch the link. For those of us who know this before, the first thing in the PDCA cycle is the policy. That's what we just did. So the first things the managers must do to be visible is to create the HSE policy. Take you see the link now? So when we talk about the managers must be visible and they must create a policy, well, it is a law, but also process safety management itself follows that idea of continuing improvement, a management system known as the PDCA cycle, in that they come up with a policy, they want to have 0 accidents, they're going to implement that policy, they're going to check up on it, probably by audits, and see if they're meeting that 0 accidents. If there's any room for improvement or lessons learned, they're going to act on that and feed it back into the policy, right? So that's how the managers could become visible. Let's get to the passive questions though, right? So other than that understanding, listen to the question, right? And listen carefully. You will have to learn this chart by heart. You have to learn this chart by heart, right? Remember, the open book exam in level 3 is not the same as here. Process safety is not an open book exam, right? So listen to what they do for exam. So we spoke about explanation just now. Now we're talking about exam. Again, there may be a bit of a distinct line between explanation and exam. The explanation is that leadership teams must be visible. They must create a policy. You must implement it. You must measure it. You must review it, right? But for exam, hear what they do, right? And I have 2 questions to prove it to you. But hear what they do, right? So every paper, they leave out something in this, and they ask you to fit it in. Or they may ask you, where does it fall? So they would say something like, policy falls under which element of the PDCA cycle? But that's an easy one. Policy falls under planning. But all of them not easy, because look at the others. You have to learn these, right? So where does lessons learned fall? It falls under acting. But I'll clear this up for you just now, right? I'll tell you something about this just now. But just at surface value now, right? Where does measuring performance fall? It falls under check-in. So you have to learn the cycle. And they accent back and forth. What I mean by back and forth, sometimes they would give you the bigger word. They would say do. So what falls under doing? And then you have to say planning and, well, not planning, but implementing an operation. Then they say what falls under check-in. You have to say measure and performance, right? So in short, you have to learn this chart by heart for exam. Let's take a look at 2 questions from it, right? So look at this one. I did this one for you. So the key elements of a process safety management system follows the plan, do, check, act model. Implementation and operation aligns itself with which part of the model? Well, as you didn't learn it as yet, implementation and operation falls under doing. So you'll see here, I would have shaded B, doing, right? So the explanation, remember, this is not an essay exam. I have to do the explanation to tell you that leadership teams must sign a policy and stuff, right? But how the exam comes is that it comes like this, right? They would give you a question from here, from the management system. In fact, in some settings, they may ask you just, what is the management system? And you have to say PDCA, plan, do, check, act. You should probably learn that. Plan, I know that sounds simple. You should probably learn that because they can switch the words on you. They can say plan, do, consequences, I don't know, act, right? And that would be wrong because remember, it is multiple choice. So the questions are not hard, but you have to learn your work, right? So plan, do, check, act has actually come for a question before, right? Take a look at this one. Tell me if you can figure this one out. The key elements of a process safety management system follows the plan, do, check, act model again. So I tell you the question coming, but is which one? Or should I say the topic is coming? Policy aligns itself with which part of the model? What is the easiest one? Policy falls under plan. Very good there, Natalie. I saw that you said it, right? So is it hard? Is the exam hard? No. Do you have to learn something? Yes. Should you learn something? Yes, because this is a globally recognized course. And it would be in such a way that you don't really want to come to a course and not learn anything. You should learn something. You're getting a UK certificate that's good for life, that's good anywhere in Trinidad, good in Guyana, good in England, etc. Right? So you should learn something, right? Let me see if there's any catchy questions here. There is no trick questions here. There is no trick questions here, so I can move on, right? Only if I have another one for you. So please remember for today so far, you're getting what is process safety. You're getting what is safety management systems, right? Leadership. Or, you know, there is a trick. But if you learn the chart, it wouldn't have a trick, right? There's a little bit of a trick with the word act. The word act is really not act. The word, I don't know if you want to write that down in your book, right? The word act is actually not act at all. Yes, plan is plan, do is do, check is check, but act is not act. I didn't create this chart, I just tell earlier, right? Plan is plan, do is do it, do in short for nothing else, but do it. Check is, you know, check is check. But act is not really act. You want to take it down. If you take down what it is, you'll understand why these words are here, right? Act is not really acted. Act is actually short for action to improve. You want to write it out? Act is not acting at all. Because if act was acting, then it would have been the same as do it. You probably take some time and try to digest what I said there. If act was acting, then it would have been the same as do it. But act is
So
not
is
acted.
this the same as like a action log tracker
No.
in
Act is just
section,
short for action to improve. Right?
so it's not
The
similar
word,
to the action log than the tracker.
no,
So
act is no, that's something else. If it's the action log tracker, that's something that you have to do. Right? Act is short for action to improve. So that's why lessons learned fall under here. Think you understand that? Lessons learned fall under here. Okay, like why didn't lessons learned fall under doing that? But if act is action to improve, then lessons learned. If lessons learned is all about improving, right? So it should fall under acting. But acting is not acting. Acting is actually just short for the word action to improve. Whoever created this chart, they just wanted to make an acronym now. So they wanted plan, do, check, act. But act is short for the word action to improve, right? So I'm just saying, should they give you, let's say they give you a funny phrase. Let's say they ask you, and I'm trying to think of one in the spot. Let's say they tell you, where would I say, I'm trying not to use back those same words there, but where would like and they have all like, because I was gonna say management review, but management review falls under acting to improve, right? Anyway, I said maybe the simplest way is just to learn the words under, right? But for those of us who understood what I said, there's a reason why lessons learned fall here, because this word is actually not really acting, it's actually action to improve. So therefore, if it's action to improve, and then lessons learned belong under that category. Management review belong under the category of actions to improve. But I guess I was too long to say. The creators of the chart then, they just wanted to make an acronym. So they wanted plan, do, check, act. And then those of us who know the chart, I guess the teachers around the world would have to let you all know that this is actually short for action to improve. Plan is plan, of course, do is do, check is check, and act is short for action to improve, right? Anyway, I don't think that's really a catch. I just wanted to put that back into context anyway, right? All right, that's the end of 1.2. If you want those of us in the book, we can have a look. Right? The book says board level visibility and promotion of process safety leadership. By the way, it's a very good idea to read your textbook. Now, as everybody doesn't have it, we wouldn't read too much of it today, but I would still shout what we have in it anyway, right? The book is a very nice read. We would actually use the book for chapter 4. I don't know if you want to take a note of that. So because there is a textbook, I will give you PowerPoints for chapter 1, 2, and 3, but I would not give you any for chapter 4. For chapter 4, we're going to use the book, the whole book. Well, not the whole book, but the whole book for chapter 4. The reason is that you all bought a book, right? And it's only fair if you buy a book, we should use the book. So I normally use it for chapter 4. For chapter 1, 2, and 3, I will kind of turn and show you where certain things are, but you would not be getting a PowerPoint for chapter 4. We're going to use the textbook for chapter 4, right? All right, let's go to organizational learning. And so here what I'll do, I would read a couple again. It's 2 o'clock. I'll read a couple of slides and then I'll do the explanation. This is very simple, but I'll have to explain it, right? When I explain it again, you'll understand it, right? Let's start. I'm going to read about, let me see, 1, 2, I can read about, no, we reached here already. I can read a couple. All of this is the same thing, you know. All of this is sharing lessons. All of this is to the reach benchmarking, right? Let me read a couple of slides and then I would just do the mass explanation. And I'll read about 5 slides, but I'll pick them, I'll choose them. I'll read 1, 2, and 3. I'll skip this because this will come back to this. This is a past paper. We'll kind of touch this, one of these slides here. This is just a chart. That's just a chart too. This is just something in the UK, right? This is a law they have in the UK, the European Union General Data Protection Regulation. That would not come for exam, right? We'll kind of touch on this a bit here, and then we'll wrap this up with a massive explanation, right? Which is a very simple explanation, right? So let's get to the first 3 slides. So the heading here is organizational learning. If you have the book, page 10, I'll give you a couple of seconds to find it. The heading is the same. Please look at the heading, the significance of learning lessons from incidences of actual or potential consequences. Same heading in the book on page 10. I'll read it again and try to digest it a bit. The significance of learning lessons from incidences of actual or potential consequences. Now, when I give you the explanation is going to answer that heading. The explanation is the answer to that heading, right? But let's read this slide a bit. So from past process safety accidents, lessons can be learned to avoid similar occurrences and their potential consequences. Trends can be identified to highlight current substandard practices, to aid in the review of the current risk assessments, to determine the highest area of priority where resources may be needed. Why do we never have the time and money to do the work up front, but always have the time and money in a catastrophe to study it afterwards? In 1984, the Union Carbide Bhopal, India disaster resulted in more than 4,000 deaths and countless injuries and diseases among community residents. On March 22, 2005, an explosion at the BP oil refinery in Texas, killed 15 workers and injured 118. It was the worst industrial disaster in the US outside of the mining industry in a quarter century. Financial losses exceeded 1.5 billion US dollars. OSHA in America issued the largest citation and penalty in its history. Chernobyl, which is actually in Ukraine, right? Ukraine, yes, right? Which still have a war going on. Millions relocated, 125,000 people dead. Not 12 now. Think about 12 people died. Think about 125 people died. This is not that. It's not 125. It's 125,000 people died, right? Estimated. USD 200 billion pounds, well, in this case, US dollars, not pounds, sorry, right? Resulted from a bypass safety system at 0100 hours on a holiday weekend. It was December, by the way, for those who know the whole story. Technical support was absent because it was like Christmas time. Generally, the learning outcome there is that companies must tell the truth, which they don't. Paria never told the truth, right? After the Chernobyl disaster, the authorities failed to alert the public to the disaster for 3 days, putting thousands of lives at risk. A learning outcome, therefore, is to alert the public as soon as possible. Most companies still not doing that, right? Going forward again. The reasons and benefits on accident and incident investigation. Reasons can include the moral, legal, and financial reasons to avoid an accident. Investigating an accident is a legal requirement. For those who didn't do level 3, you may have been familiar with RIDO. If you have not been familiar with it, it's just a law in England. They don't ask these sort of questions anyway, right? So reporting an accident is a requirement of the law. Anybody remember what it stood for? Any level 3 student remember what it is? Not an exam question, so we kind of wasting time. But anybody remember what did RIDO stand for? You didn't have to remember it anyway. It stood for the reporting of injuries, diseases, and dangerous occurrence regulation. It would not come for exam. It's not an exam question, right? Why do we investigate accidents and incidents? To determine the underlying cause, to prevent the accident from occurring again, to gather data, prevention of business loss due to disruption immediately after the event, lost production, you're trying to prevent all of that, loss of business, through lowering of its reputation. You try to develop, because of the investigation, you develop a foster culture of health and safety, right? Benefits of accident investigation, improvement in employee morale, improvement in management skills, right? So you can normally go through an accident to see what has happened, why it happened, and what will be done to prevent it from happening. Again, we call that like a cause mapping diagram. This will not come for exam, it's just part of the syllabus that is not heavily examined, right? The steps on accident investigation, secure the scene, attend to the casualty, investigation and analysis, come up with a report, notify those notifying authorities or family members, share the lessons learned, implement any corrective actions, look for any trends. And of course, you know, that should be somewhat cyclic if you are trying to go with continued improvement. These questions do not come for exam, right? Documented management processes in place to ensure the retention of corporate knowledge. Companies must have processes in place to ensure the retention of corporate knowledge required under the new European General Data Regulation, the GDPR. Usually the duty is satisfied by the company having a retention policy. A retention policy includes both physical paperwork and digital formats, right? So I think I could give the explanation, right? Let me finish up this concept, right? So they're saying that you must have like a way to secure your documents and the companies, your critical safety documents. So documented management process that can be retained includes the record of the designers, hazard and operability studies, something called a hazard. This is chapter 2. Hazard studies, hazards initially identified, the predicted studies conducted such as inventory analysis. Any company document that you'd have worked on, you should retain, right? For all of us here, because none of us are really process level students, right? For all of us here, all these funny words, hazards, and ETAs, what are these? I could tell you, but this is chapter 2. So we're not going into them, right? These are advanced RAs. Remember we spoke about that? This course have advanced RAs in it. So they're saying if you do an advanced RA or even a normal RA, keep it. That's the heading, right? You must have a process in place to retain your corporate knowledge. And most companies have that. You have, you know, like a retention policy. The retention policy may be good for about 3 years, 5 years, etc. Right? So back to the point of sharing lessons learned, right? Remember that's the heading here, organizational learning. So sharing of incident information is critical to worldwide learning so that every operation doesn't have to learn from its own experiences, or should I say mistakes. Sharing information across teams and departments can result in local improvements and changes to practices. It can also communicate lessons which can change attitudes and perceptions. Lessons can be shared across industries too. If a piece of equipment or a component has a major inherent fault, then this can ignite or initiate a worldwide recall. So the need for sharing lessons learned, we recommend that you consider the following course of action to help avoid similar future events. Ensure a description of the incident is clear. Ensure all aspects of the incidents are shared. Include pictures if possible. Include root possible causes. Include causal factors. Include recommended corrective actions. Include appointed incident officer. Include emergency contingency plan. Externally, lessons can be shared by reporting them to the regulator, insurers, trade journals or journals, manufacturers, suppliers, clients via the press and social media. It can be by direct release reports, publishing articles and holding conferences, or by taking part in interviews and communicating events. I'm trying to come to a question, right? When I reach it, I'll tell you. Because the explanation for all of this is really simple. The process of assessing incident information that has been shared Identify a single point contact to receive and log alerts and ensure that they are assessed. Assess information to be determined applicably to your operation. Communicate incident to the relevant personnel and ensure the information filters down to their own people. Treat these events as just have happened to your operation, right? I think I'll explain, right? I think I'll explain. Okay, so here's what happened, right? If you listen, I will just wrap it up in like 2 or 3 sentences, right? So here's what they say. The whole thing about organizational learning, see if you're getting it. It's a simple explanation, right? Is that in process safety, right? In process safety, you cannot wait for something to happen to your plant. Organizational learning, look at the heading, organizational learning. So what they're saying is that, and if you've seen it all over the slide, from past process safety accidents, lessons can be learned by you to avoid those things happening on your plant. From past process safety accidents, lessons can be learned, right? To avoid similar occurrences and their potential consequences on your plant. So you cannot wait. You cannot wait for Bhopal. You cannot wait for Texas City. You cannot wait for Chernobyl. Because if you do, you wouldn't be here. You understand what they say in organizational learning, folks? Try to answer what I'm trying to tell you here now. Listen to it again. Listen to it in another way, right? In level 3, in everyday safety, you could have, you could have just sat in your office and, if during the month somebody, report that they fell or they slip on a cord or something fall from a height, you could have just dealt with that because your plant is still around, right? Your facility is still there, but you cannot wait for Chernobyl. 125,000 people killed, and by the way, Chernobyl is actually still buried under concrete. It's a radiation leak they had and they bury it with concrete, right? It's still reacting anyway, right? You cannot wait then for a Bhopal, you cannot wait for a Piper Alpha, the platform burned, right? 167 people died in a Piper Alpha, right? So what they're saying is that, I don't know if you get it, listen to the bigger picture. The bigger picture is this. The bigger picture is this. The bigger picture is this. The bigger picture is you in the process safety world, what they say is that somebody have to be the point man. Somebody have to be the contact person. And that person, that's what you are seeing here, right? Somebody have to be the point person to go and research, to see what's happening in Paria, and what's happening in Nyquad, and what's happening in Gisby, and what's happening in Exxon, and take those lessons and apply it to your company. That's what the slides were saying over and over again. But I didn't want to tell you because by the time I tell you, that would have been the end of the thing, right? So that's what you're seeing here. Identify a single point contact to receive and log the alerts. That person must assess the information to see how applicable it is to your company. So what's happening in Exxon, the accident on the man-made land or island? What's happening in Paria, the accident with the divers? How is it applicable to your company? You cannot wait for one to happen by you because it means somebody will be dead, right? It's different for everyday safety. You could have stayed in your office in everyday safety and wait for somebody to say, well, a hammer fall or a pipe fall, and yes, you got struck on your foot, but at least you're not dead, right? So that person is to communicate the incident to all relevant personnel, and you have to treat those incidents as just have happened to your company. Why? Why put yourself through that stress? Why would somebody want to do that in process safety? Anybody can tell me the answer again? Why are you looking at organizational learning? It means X is learning from Y. Demas is learning from Paria, right? Gisby is learning from Exxon or a contractor, right? So why are you doing that, right? So why are you doing that? Anybody can say, why are you taking the organizational learning? That's the heading in the book. Why are you treating these things as if it has happened to your company? Because
You don't want it to happen in your company.
you see, if it does, you wouldn't be here. That's what we're trying to say, right? So that this big flow chart is saying that same thing. What? Incident information received. Do we have equipment and processes like it? Yes. Do we have the potential for the same incident? Yes. You communicate that with your group. Implement change to upgrade the management system so that it doesn't happen on your side. Folks, you understand the point? I'm going to say it one more time. In everyday safety, you could wait. You could sit down in the office for the whole month and see how much incidents you have. In process safety, you can't, you wouldn't be here. The plant would be destroyed, you would probably be dead, the whole thing would be destroyed, right? So in process safety, when they say organizational learning, you understand it now? Somebody is going to be the point man or woman in this case. Somebody is going to be the point person, and that person in the company have to go and research. Research what? You research in past accidents. That's why I have this here. What's happened in Paria? What has happened in Chernobyl? What has happened in Bhopal, India? What has happened in Texas City? And you're asking yourself, could that happen to me? Do we have a similar operation, right? That's the purpose of organizational learning. So listen to the question, right? The question is very easy. NEBOSH is just going to ask you why. Why should a company do that? And the answer is right here. The answer is right here. Sharing of incident information is critical to worldwide learning so that every company doesn't have to learn, or should I say burn, to learn. But the answer right here. Let me try to find the question for you. Look at here. Take your time and answer it. Huh? I just tell you the answer, you know. What is the main reason for sharing lessons from major incidents with other organizations? Why bother do that? Why waste your time? Why learn about Piper Alpha? What is the main reason for sharing lessons learned from major incidents at other organizations? I just said it, huh? Everybody do have to burn to learn. We can learn from other people's mistakes. See which best answer here satisfy what I just said there. What's the best answer that satisfy what I just said? What's the main reason from learning from Piper Alpha? What is the main reason from learning from Paria? I should have put some water on my table. Tell me what you think. By the way, remember, don't ever ignore a past paper because remember, they love to repeat. So with the explanation done, this topic is done. All we have to do is the question, right? I'm seeing Daniel. Did you have an answer in? Mary have an answer in. Was this the latest one you all said? Think about it. We will say it as you don't have to burn to learn. In other words, then again, the old people have a saying. Sorry to give to the old people saying here today, but the old people have a saying, if your neighbor house is on fire, what to do with yours? If your neighbor house is on fire, wet yours. So that's what we're learning from the other company so that we don't have to learn. So which best answer satisfy that? So you all did have it correct, but I'm not going to say it as it. Let me see what the rest of you are saying. Anybody want to unmute the mic and say?
See?
Okay, C. Anybody else? It's two. So Roger, you have an answer. Dean, you have an answer. Kern have an answer. What say the rest of you all? What is the main reason from learning from last? Why do we want to learn from Paria? And then those in Guyana, why does he want to learn from the deaths on that, you know, well, it had other deaths, but I suppose I'm familiar with the one on the man-made island they're making out in this, well, in the, I think that's the sea, and that's not the Demerara River, right? I think that's the sea. And they had a death there anyway, right? Kamini said C. Anybody want to tip the table? So some of y'all saying B and C, B and C. Anybody? We have close to 19, 20 people here. What was actually 20 just now? Somebody left. B, C, B, C. What's the main reason that we just said? And my answers is the local way of saying it is that if your neighbor house is on fire, wet yours. We don't have to burn to learn. Let's go back to the course and you'll see. So I had two B's and I had two C's. So somebody kind of try to get it. C. Okay, Devin said C.
No, I
All
said
right.
B.
Oh, B. Okay, good. Well, the answer is actually B. The answer is B, right? So that's what the note said. The note said it here. The answer is B, that you don't have to learn from your own mistakes then. You could actually just learn from what has happened in another company, right? Like for those of us in Trinidad, we will actually understand this in Paria, right? With the divers, they did not fill out a permit to work. So the learning is if you're going into a confined space, fill out a permit to work, right? Why? It's not about the permit really, it's about what's on the permit. The permit would have said they must have suitable rescue. The permit would have said wait until the divers come out, then to activate the line. And don't put on the line when the guys and them still inside there, right? So we learn from what has happened. I cannot resurrect anybody, right? The divers and them died, right? But to avoid similar disasters going forward, we learn from them so that if you're going into a vessel make sure you have emergency rescue. If you're going into a vessel, make sure you have secondary oxygen supply. If you're going into a vessel, make sure you have a rescue team on standby and you don't have to go and call them for them to come. Folks, you understand this? Yes, you understand, like what I say, these things could have prevented the deaths of those divers, right? And of course, those of us who know about PARIA, what they used to do is that they would actually do the dive first. Some companies do this, and they just be proud of it, but they are proud of it anymore, right? Some companies just go and do the work first, and 3:30 in the evening, then you sit down and you fill out all the permit and then, right? That's what PARIA used to do. You go and do the dive, and when you finish, but when you come out of the dive, then you sign out all the paperwork. But the permit is meant for you to be safe. If you had filled out the permit the right way, the permit would have said, has the line been isolated? You know what isolation means?
Lockout, tagout, sure.
Right. But in the simplest case here, it's lockout target, but it means prevented from being re-energized. That's what happened in Paris. They put on an adjacent line that created a suction, right? But how could that have happened? Because isolation means when the work is going on, which they were still in the dive, right? That you lock out and you prevent it from being re-energized. But you see, you never follow the permit. You just follow the permit 3:30 in the evening. Some companies like to boast about that. Yeah, when we come out, when we finish the work, 3:30, we'll just sit down and finish the permit. But it resulted in deaths. So we learn from that. We learn that we don't have to really have a debt in our company to know that you must follow the permit the right way. You must take accountability then, right? So back to the answers here. So for the rest of students who put C, let me tell you something, right? Do you all know that all these answers are correct? But they're not correct for the question. So that was reading the question is important, right? All these correct enough, but they're not correct for this question. You understand that, folks? That's C. So what is the main reason for sharing lessons learned? That's what the accent. A says the integration of quality, environmental, and health and safety management system. Well, that's nice. That's good. But that's not what the accent. They say, what is the main reason? We do want to integrate quality, environment, and health and safety, but that's not what the accent. So this is a true statement, but it doesn't fit with this. The main reason for sharing lessons learned, right? We say potential benefits are much greater for the process safety industry as a whole, in that you don't have to wait for a death in your company. You can learn from what happened to another company. When your neighbor house is on fire, wet yours. So the answer is B. Let's see the other one. Accident investigation are more effective in determining immediate and root causes. That is true. But they didn't ask that. They asked what is the main reason for sharing lessons learned. This is a true statement, but it doesn't fit into this. Last one. Operating procedures are standardized so that workers have a consistent approach. That's also true. Operating procedures are standardized. That's how we know how to follow out a form. But they didn't ask that. They asked what is the main reasons for sharing lessons learned. And that's the topic. Why did we talk about organizational learning? Why do you treat things as if it happened to your company? Because you cannot wait for a Chernobyl. And well, in Trinidad, you can't wait for that. You can't wait for that in Guyana either. 100 and, how much did you say? 25K. Think about 12 people dead. How much people is 12 people is plenty. You ever think 12, you say 12 people died. That's a massacre. This is not 12. Think about 125 people died. That is a massacre. That is a disaster. But this is not even 125. This is 125,000. 125,000. Right? So that's how much it is, right? Folks, I think you understand? You understand the question? Why do we need to learn from Piper Alpha? Why do we need to learn from Paria? Why do we need to learn from Exxon? Why do we need to learn from disasters in different parts of the world? Tell me if you understand, because that is the heading and that is the question. If you go back to the heading, you'll see it. I told you the answer is going to answer the heading. What's the significance of learning lessons from incidences of actual or potential consequences? Significance is that you don't have to burn down your own house. You don't have to wait for your company to hit the ground, right? Or to get in a disaster to take corrective action. You can take it from what has happened to other companies as well. Because if you wait in the process safety industry, you and your company would no longer be around. Tell me what you think, because that is finished. We're going on to 1.4. Oh my Lord, it's 26 minutes past 2. I think we have to stop. The past papers do that, right? But you see, I have to tie it to the past paper because remember, at the end of the day, you have an exam. What we can do, we could look at another question maybe if you want. You want to look at one more question? So next week, anything, right? Next week, I will still have to send you another PowerPoint. You see, there's 3 things remaining here. It's not very long. This wouldn't take us an hour and a half. The 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, those of us who have the textbook, it may look long, but I mean, it looked long on the slide, but the explanation is not long, right? So actually next week we'll be finishing this and we'll be starting chapter 2. This is, if you look at your book only have 4 chapters, right? Your book only have 4 chapters. We are on 1.3, we just finished that. We'll do 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, but these are easy. These are easy concepts, right? So I'll send you another PowerPoint in a week. That's a chapter 2. Chapter 2 will take us about 2 sessions. Chapter 3 is 2 sessions. That's 4, 5, 6. And chapter 4 is like 1 session. So about 7 sessions in all. By the way, I don't know if you always sent a schedule, but there is something like a schedule, right? So my folks in Guyana, I am actually in Guyana for 2 Sundays. So that means we would not have any classes, right? So I'm trying to see if I can find I could probably send you an email on it. I think there was a schedule sort of sent, right? But it's the 23rd, because I'm flying out of Trinidad that day. That's a Sunday, the 23rd of June, not May, not May, not May, not May, June, and the 30th of June. Those 2 Sundays I would be in Guyana, right? Working, right? I actually have some training that whole week in Guyana. So it's not as if I'm free, right? I'm not free to sit down to say, can have a class. I would be in Guyana those 2 Sundays, the 23rd. So for Quentin, I'll be coming to Google Airport, right? And Oliver as well, right? I think we have made some sort of arrangements here. Folks, let me stop the recording. I want to just do one more. There's actually one question we left out. It was this question here. See if we can answer this one. And this is to prove to you that the exam is not hard. You just have to kind of know your work a bit, right? For Quentin as well, the recording will be put on the WhatsApp group, right? The recording will be sent to the WhatsApp group. Yes, the WhatsApp group. I know those of us in level 3, we are accustomed at Google Classroom. The recording will be sent to the WhatsApp group, hopefully by today, as soon as it finishes processing. See if we can do this one. The most important benefit of worker engagement when undertaking risk assessment is which one? Which is the most important benefit of involving workers when undertaking a risk assessment? A, the avoidance of conflict when the risk assessments are introduced. B, a balanced representation of workers and managers. C, compliance with legal requirements. D, you get detailed knowledge input regarding practical workplace hazards and risk. Well, it seemed today that the letter, anybody have an answer? The letter D was popular today, right?
Yeah.
So yes, Mary have it, Pooja has it as well, Kamini it's correct, Daniel is correct. And for the rest of you all, if you said D as well, D is the best answer here, right? All right, we have to stop, it's 2:30. Right, you see what I tell you, not a hard course. What do you all think of the questions? What do you all think of what you saw here today? There is